Hey, thanks for watching our kiddo for a week. I'll be picking him up today. What are you talking about? We weren't home. Wait, what? The voice on the other end of the line clearly belongs to a rattled sister-in-law. So, where is my son right now? My name's Sophia, a 34-year-old stay-at-home mom. I've been married to John for 4 years. We moved in with John's parents last year, sharing the home with them. The reason? John's dad, Matthew, has been having trouble with his legs, and his mom, Victoria, became his primary caregiver. We thought it'd be too much for Victoria to handle both housework and caregiving, so John and I offered to move in. At first, they were hesitant, but they eventually welcomed the idea. He thanked us for our proposal and said he would like to use it. John has a brother, James, who works for a global company and is currently abroad on business. That's why John, being the younger son, felt it was his responsibility to stay close to his parents and initiated the move. Living in my in-laws' house, I had no complaints about Victoria or Matthew. Sophia, your cooking is always so good. I can't do much housework because of taking care of Matthew, so it's really a lifesaver. Victoria was always thankful when I helped with chores. I'd never been mistreated, quite the opposite. Both Victoria and Matthew are incredibly kind, and living with them always left me feeling serene. I'd always known John to be a kind-hearted guy. It's no surprise, given how his parents are. I've always thought of John as a kind person, but I guess it's because he was raised by this parents-in-law that we have similar personalities. In that way, living together at in-laws' house was fun. But recently, tragedy struck. Matthew's health deteriorated, and he passed away at the hospital. It was heartbreaking. And Victoria and John were deeply affected. Soon after, we held Matthew's funeral. Matthew was a beloved figure, so many people attended the service. James came back from abroad to be there. John, Sophia, thank you for taking on so much responsibility. As the eldest son, I should have been the one to stay with Dad. Don't worry about it, bro. Your job overseas is important. That's right. I found happiness living with Matthew and Victoria. Thanks, both of you. I have to head back to my assignment, so please continue to look after Mom. James thanked us and left, clearly feeling bad that he couldn't be more involved. He seemed to feel sorry for not being able to get involved in household affairs. After Matthew's passing, we continued living with Victoria in her home. Not just because James asked us to, but because we were genuinely worried about Victoria, now alone. Victoria seemed deeply saddened ever since the funeral. Both John and I were cautious in our interactions with her. We didn't want to make her feel overwhelmed, so we carried on as usual, being attentive to her needs along the way. Gradually, Victoria started feeling better. Thanks, both of you. I'm okay now. Sorry for worrying you. Victoria said that, smiling warmly, just like before. Both John and I were glad to see Victoria back to her old self. From then on, the three of us lived peacefully as a family. However, there was someone who had recently become a nuisance. That was Olivia, my brother-in-law's wife. Hello! Looking forward to another great day! Oh, she's back again. Olivia frequently drops off her son Alexander with us. Alexander himself isn't a bad kid. In fact, he's quite well behaved. However, Olivia leaves her child with us without considering our plans. At first, we thought it might be a good distraction for Victoria, who had just lost Matthew. Seeing her grandchild would likely lift her spirits. And indeed, Victoria seemed happy spending time with Alexander. But it was becoming exhausting with how often Olivia was dropping him off. Apparently, Olivia works part-time on the weekends and can't take care of her son during that time. Alexander is only 5. He can't stay home alone. Victoria must be free now that she doesn't have to take care of Matthew anymore. That's what Olivia selfishly claimed. She wasn't wrong, but that didn't make it okay to impose her child on us. I wonder why she doesn't work during the weekdays when Alexander is at preschool. That way, she could pick him up after work. It's puzzling. Do you think my brother knows about this? I mean, if he's in a global company, does she even need to work this much? John and I had that conversation. When Alexander gets dropped off during the weekends, John can't relax after work. I also have a part-time job during weekdays, so I'd rather have a peaceful weekend with John and Victoria. Our plans get thrown off when Olivia suddenly shows up to drop off her child. Finally, John and I asked Olivia to minimize the frequency of her visits. We have our plans too, you know? It's troublesome when you keep leaving Alexander here. Oh, what plans could possibly be more important than my job? Olivia retorted defensively. John shot back. Why don't you consider working weekdays? Alexander is at preschool then, so there's no need to leave him here. This infuriated Olivia. How terrible! You people don't care about family at all. It's sad to have relatives like you, Olivia says, getting emotional. She screams so loudly that John and I were taken aback. Sophia, John, let it be. I enjoy spending time with my grandson, so it's no problem for me. Victoria stepped in to mediate. Good on you, Victoria. I knew you'd say that. Alexander seems fond of you, and it's better to leave him with someone we can trust. Although, John and Sophia, you've lost a bit of that trust with this. With a smug look on her face, Olivia made that comment. Ever since then, the frequency of her dropping off Alexander increased. Lately, she's even been bringing him over from preschool until the evening on weekdays. I was surprised to find Alexander at home when I returned from my part-time job. Sure, it's tough for her to look after the kid alone while James is away on a business trip, but she's definitely taking advantage of us. At this rate, we're practically taking care of Alexander half of the month. Once he's with us, we often end up feeding him lunch, snacks, and sometimes even dinner. And Olivia doesn't give us any money for food or anything. The burden keeps increasing on our end, and it didn't sit well with me. But Victoria accepts everything, so neither John nor I could say anything further. Amidst all this, an unexpected incident occurred. The weather had been scorching hot. The moment you step outside, you're dripping with sweat. Though we were all cautious, one day I came home from my part-time job to find Victoria had collapsed. We immediately called an ambulance, and they confirmed it was heat stroke. Luckily, she fell just before I got home, so she was alright, but she had to be hospitalized for some time. I got so focused on housework, I didn't realize I was overheating. I'm really sorry for worrying you. It's okay, Mom. Thankfully, you're safe now. John and I were chatting with Victoria in her hospital room. We were relieved, but we had planned a family trip, set to depart the day after tomorrow. If Mom's in the hospital, the trip's going to be a problem. Yeah, we'll need to cancel. As we were discussing this, Victoria had a suggestion. Why don't you two go ahead without me? But Mom, we're worried about you. Right, we can't just leave you behind and go. Victoria insisted. You two always help me out, so now's the time to have some alone time as a couple. I'll be fine, I'm in a hospital after all. Feeling encouraged, we decided to proceed with the trip. It's a waste to have to pay the cancellation fee for 3 people. If I'm the only one who doesn't want to go, maybe I can change it without having to pay anything. After being encouraged so much, we decided to go on a trip as well. John is also on summer vacation, so we decided to go on a trip as planned. John and I got into the car early in the morning on the day of the trip and headed for our Ocean View hotel. We were so excited for a trip as a couple after so long. We even stopped at various shops on the way and had a good time. We found some knickknacks that Victoria would like in a chic boutique. As we were thinking about grabbing some lunch at a cafe, my phone rang. It was Olivia. Sophia? Why aren't you answering your phone? Huh? I called an hour ago and even sent messages. Oh, sorry. We're out at the moment. Must be nice, going out while I'm working. Huh? And so, the usual passive-aggressive comments began. So there I was, thinking everything was fine, when Olivia dropped a bombshell. Look, I left Alexander by the front door. Take him inside and look after him, would ya? What? Alright, you handle the rest. Wait, hold on a sec. Before I could say anything more, she hung up the phone. I tried to call her back several times, but it seemed she had turned off her phone, probably annoyed with my constant calling. I immediately consulted with John. Even though it wasn't that hot today, it's still summer. Leaving someone outside for hours could lead to heat stroke. And seriously, who leaves a 5-year-old alone outside? Problem was, John and I were already far from home, as we'd left early in the morning. Seeing me panic, John calmly said, Relax, let's think this through. I'll call bro, he's probably off work today. With that, John called James. Fortunately, James picked up quickly, and John explained the situation. James was shocked and gave us the contact number for Olivia's parents right away. John then called Olivia's parents, explained the situation, and they agreed to pick up Alexander. Turns out it was a blessing in disguise. Olivia's parents lived only about an hour's drive from us, so they could pick up Alexander without much trouble. Apparently, Alexander was sitting in the shade, looking distressed. Olivia's parents quickly gave him some water and took him to their house. He was safe for now. John and I felt relieved and went on to enjoy our trip. But man, Olivia is one exhausting person. We agreed that we needed to give her a piece of our minds. But what happened next was beyond what we could have expected. About a week later, Olivia called me. Hey, thanks for watching Alexander for a week. I'll pick him up today. She spoke as if she'd done nothing wrong. What are you talking about? What do you mean, what? Got a heat stroke and lost your mind? I said I'm coming to pick up Alexander. We weren't even home. What? We were out of state when you said you left Alexander at our doorstep. Couldn't come back. Olivia was clearly shaken over the phone. Then, where's Alexander? He's at your parents' place. At my parents'? Yes, they've been watching over him. No way! With that, Olivia abruptly hung up, most likely headed to her parents' place. About an hour later, Olivia showed up. Where's Alexander? Huh? The moment she entered the living room, she was speechless. That's to be expected, because there we all were. Olivia's parents, us, Victoria, and even James. Why is everyone here? Olivia seems confused. Then Olivia's parents spoke up. You really are beyond help. Mom? What's going on all of a sudden? Word is, you've been dropping off Alexander at James's parents way too often, haven't you? Well, I've been busy with work, so it's just on weekends. That's no excuse. Dropping him off every single weekend? I also heard from James's mother that you've been leaving him there on weekdays, too. Olivia's mother and father were confronting her like this. Feeling cornered by her own parents, Olivia defended herself. I'm working, you know? It's okay for me to get a little support. Victoria and John are free anyway. James then chimed in to counter Olivia's justification. I've been transferring you enough money, haven't I? You even said you needed more, so now I'm sending you $3,000 a month for living expenses, and you're saying that's not enough? Yes, that's right. $3,000 is not enough. Olivia was becoming increasingly defiant. Any reasonable person would think you could live quite comfortably with $3,000 a month for living expenses when it's just you and a small child. That's when Victoria sighed. Olivia, why don't you just stop lying? What? I'm not lying! You're not really working, are you? Stunned, Olivia's eyes widened at Victoria's words. I am working! Then please, tell us where you're working. Under Victoria's scrutiny, Olivia started to panic. Victoria then pulled out an envelope and spread its contents on the table. I hate to say this in front of your parents, but I've had my suspicions about you, so I had an investigation done. What? It turns out you've been having an affair. You met him often on the weekends you left Alexander with us, even on weekdays when you could manage the time. Victoria began laying out photos as proof of the affair. Stop! Don't display those pictures like that! Frantic, Olivia tried to hide the pictures. What you've done is a betrayal to all of us. James, who's been working hard on business trips. Sophia and John, who's been caring for Alexander. And most of all, you've betrayed Alexander. It seemed Olivia finally realized the gravity of her actions. Olivia finally broke down and apologized deeply in front of us. I'm really sorry. Can you find it in your hearts to forgive me? Olivia kept apologizing, but some things can't be fixed that easily. James walked up to Olivia and handed her a piece of paper. These are divorce papers. Let's end our relationship. What? I don't want a divorce. Shouldn't have had an affair, then. James is right. I'm ashamed to say you're my daughter. Stop causing trouble and just agree to the divorce. No way! No one in the room was on Olivia's side. Eventually, Olivia signed the divorce papers, sealing the end of her marriage with James. James was granted custody of their child. He spoke to his company about the situation and decided to return to the US sooner than planned. Although this cost him a potential promotion, James said, life with Alexander is more important, and they're now living together in an apartment near our family home. As for Olivia, she's been sued for alimony by James and her affair partner. She was also disowned by her parents and is working desperately to pay off her monthly installments. Olivia had wanted to see Alexander, but Alexander himself refused. Apparently, Olivia was too absorbed in her phone to take care of him and often neglected his basic needs. Who would want to be involved with someone like that? Turns out, Olivia's affair partner was also married, and now his wife is suing her as well. Even worse, he decided not to divorce, leaving Olivia with massive debt and losing everything: her child, James, and her parent. From now on, she'll live a lonely life, with most of her earnings going toward alimony payment, but she brought it all on herself. It's the punishment she deserves for her betrayal. Meanwhile, John and I are living happily with Victoria, and since Alexander and James live nearby, we regularly go out for meals or have barbecues in our in-laws' backyard, enjoying quality family time. I plan to continue cherishing this family I love so much and live out my days in happiness.